This song is entitled Trumpet and a Mic. This is an original composition that started with a story about my life, and a story about me coming of age and coming into my maturity. In the video, which I created and directed, it's me talking to myself at age 3, the story of a man growing up through the trials and tribulations of inner city living, through poverty, through struggle and abuse, and coming to be a mature man who enjoys love in his life and is sharing with his young self how everything is going to be okay, and through faith and hard work. The trumpet and the mic can be used as a catalyst to set you free from your pain. Enjoy this.
Ask me how I did it. I woke up 6 o'clock in the morning. When I ain't even wanna go to school, I forced it. I knew the whack jeans and holy shoes get laughed at. The girls wasn't checking for me, gotta get past that. This thing murdering fools like every week. Man, I had to learn to turn the other cheek. What would you tell me to do if I was your son? Do I pick up this horn or do I bust guns? Now I gotta walk down North Avenue. That's where they killed Freddie Gray, you do the math, dude. Plus I gotta be a teacher. I taught myself to survive in the furthest place from God's reach. Out here with the killers and the murderers. Boy, you know you heard of us. We the kids with no lunch money, standing on the corner selling dime bag and ain't nothing funny. Everybody mother getting high. Almost lost my mind when my mother died. Single mothers trying to make a way. And I don't know if I'ma ever see the brighter days. Lock us up and throw away the key. They don't wanna put no money in the inner city. I got the food stamps and the free bus pass. Borrow money all day, trying to make it last.
Trumpet and a mic. Trumpet and a mic. Trumpet and a mic. Trumpet and a mic.
All I got is a
Trumpet and a mic.
All I got is a
Trumpet and a mic.
All I got is a
Trumpet and a mic.
All I got is a
Trumpet and a mic. Big bless.
I'm taking lessons at the Peabody.
We'll get into that second verse. So let's start with the intro. The intro uses some metric modulation and some changes in the tempo. Meter change as well. Let's hear just the intro of live strings. Let's hear it with the metronome, for example. We walk a little bit through 3/4 and 4/4. My favorite plugins in the beginning kind of outline this Albion 5 Tundra. I really like this because it's quiet, it's mysterious, and you can hear the texture is very subtle, but it sort of begins the story with its creepy, it's a sense of suspense. You don't know what's going to happen next. And when you add that with, say, Lumina, and I think I had some BML Spitfire as well, you get the film cinematic texture of something's big is about to happen. Just one simple gesture, one note, open fifths. I then bring in the LA scoring strings and the BBC flute and bass clarinet, which I really, really like. Let's hear how they interact with the live strings as well. So here's a few plugins and here are the live players. The illusion is if you have live players and you add the plugins, it makes the plugin sound better. And I love mixing that effect. Let's hear the beginning. Bass clarinet and flute enter. And that's the intro right there. Tremolo comes in a little bit later. And so let's take a look at the euphonium comes in, a little bit of brass. Let's take a look at the score as we hear the intro so we can see the process by which I come to get it into the DAW. I like to first start with music notation. After I write it out and score it, I transfer the MIDI from the notation into a DAW of your choice. I use Ableton and Logic. And I assign each MIDI instrument to a different plugin. Now, I like to mix the plugins because I feel like each plugin is a different player. So violin, I might have 3 or 4 different violin plugins. I might have BBC on one and Tundra on another and LCO on a different one and then cinematic strings on another one. And for cello, I like to use different players. And for bass, each instrument I treat as a member of the orchestra. So you have to have different plugins, of course. If you don't, you can kind of detune each plugin. And I'll just play the intro and look at the notation for a second. Let me slide this over. Okay. Make sure you can see that, and I'll try to follow along. We're in tempo right here. That's the intro. And I try to write it as lush as possible. I try to put in all the dynamic markings and the shadings and color I might like. And you don't have to do that. You might want to just perform with automation how you want it to sound. But the live player, if you're able to get someone to record exactly what you can print the sheet music out in Logic from just the MIDI piano roll. Once the live musician plays on top, it'll give it that sense of reality. As we go to the middle of the song, let's check out the brass and the cimbasso. The cimbasso you can see in the music video as well. That's the lowest part of the instrument in the brass family, like the tuba, but it's much more aggressive. And you can hear the, Immortals, you can hear it in a lot of film score, where it's the lowest brass instrument.
It's a trumpet and a mic. All I got is a trumpet and a mic. All I got is a
Looks
trumpet
like
and
a
a
serpent.
mic.
See the one on the end. Solo brass. Some crazy swells there. I love the sack butt as well from Albion 2. And the French horn there. Let's just check this section out of it. Super low brass there. And of course, I'm layering trumpets on top of it. It's my swell. Down. And I kind of like to over accentuate these sforzando crescendos, kind of like being a brass musician. You're used to using an attack with a lot of air and a sharp tongue. Pow! Bang! Pow! So I always tell musicians when you're doing, if you're a piano player and you're not used to a wind instrument where you can control the dynamics at a great degree, imagine if you had to and go down to nothing. So if you look at that in terms of automation, sometimes I like to go down to 17, or sometimes I go all the way down to 0, because that's how I would perform it as a brass musician. And the goal is to continually attempt to perform and play these plugins like real instruments. Then when you add the real player on top, the effect will be achieved to even a greater degree. Let's get into the second verse.
So y'all can start eating. Mama, why they turn the lights off? Why none of me and my friends got fathers? Why I gotta keep the door closed? Why the kitchen table pile of cocaine in the arsenal? Why the little girls get touched? Why the skirt come up? Why the family hush? What? Why the light-skinned kids get treated better? Why we wearing tennis shoes in the cold weather? Why the landlord disrespect you? Talk crazy to your boyfriend you standing right next to. Yellow note on the door, know that the rent's due. Shit out on the porch, neighbors know what we going through. Now all I got is a trumpet and a mic.
That's my son, Messiah. He stood there the whole time for 3 takes of the verse.
Trumpet and a mic.
Here's the automation.
All I got is a trumpet and a mic. All I got is a trumpet and a mic. All I got is a trumpet and a mic.
And you can see I did this one by hand. This is me playing trumpet. So a little bit of jazz improvisation there. Also add some life to your compositions. You know, feel free to use this as a paintbrush. You know, we have cinema. When I thought of this song, it was just an idea of me telling my life story. But then when I thought about using the orchestra, I'm used to conducting these arrangements for a lot of major label artists. And I'm used to rapping on stages for 20 years and touring and playing trumpet. I just sought to put everything that I own into a piece of work. So it's like a work that contains everything I do. There's 808s, there's plugins, there's live remote players, there's improvisation, there's effects. At the end, we come into a part where the interaction between the live DJ, which I love, which gives the plugin some realness. So here's the DJ.
Trumpet and a mic. Trumpet and a mic.
You can hear that under the solo. So he's soloing, I'm soloing. Let's check this out. Mixing that with the live strings. It just presents the feeling that those are real strings. So you have to assume your ear tells you that the brass is real as well.
Trumpet and a mic.
So if we wanted to open up one of these, some of these plugins, I realize I have them frozen just so the session would run smooth. But this, I'll unfreeze this bass clarinet. This is from BBC. This is new. I really like the instruments in the orchestra of BBC. They sound so realistic. This is legato patch of the wood, winds, brass, clarinet. You can see that. Let's solo that one. I'll just solo this section so we can see how these instruments interact with the orchestra. Even the hall sounds real to me. And I match that with the flute, British flute. Unfreeze that. That's a Claire plugin. Claire plugin that I really like. And I mix those up with, that's from the Cage collection. LA Scoring Strings patch here. And the kicker is those are kind of jagged, and they're doing short tremolo. And they're doing an augmented chord. That's really useful in a lot of film scores for a cinematic effect. But mixing the articulations, I think, is key into getting a realistic sound there. And then we add the Albion brass, which I really dig. And again, with the metronome from the beginning, just to get a sense of, you're going 4/4/3, 4/4/4. Tempos changes. Don't be intimidated by tempo changes. You can do them in any DAW. Just try to stay with the metronome grid. If possible, move the MIDI around or slide the players around. Don't be scared to slide sections of audio back and forth to allow it to fit. But why do people use tempo changes? Mostly for feel and emotion. When I'm slowing down and do a ritardando or a celerando, I want to get the feeling that something's moving with urgency or something slowing down because of passion and deep emotional sensitivity. And that was my focus on the beginning, to create a world. I'll do it with the metronome first. Back to 90. Here comes 3/4 bar. 80. 1, 2, 3. And we're back to 80 and back up to 90. We speed up. When I do medleys, as you can see in the next composition, I have to change meter and sometimes tempo often to catch up with the band, or slow down or speed up or do transitions. And I like to do this with the notation software first, and then I implement that MIDI information into the DAW. If I also can do it here in the DAW, but composing to or writing to the MP3, like for Super Bowl or Oscars or anything, I'm always sent the MP3 of this is the mock-up. And it's important to try to make your mock-ups as accurate as possible so that the producer or musical director can see the vision very clearly. And then we add the live players after we've done a mock-up. In order to do a music video like this, you would have to, in the room when I conducted the players, I played over the loudspeaker the composition, but then you have to lead them in. So I had to create a click, because Ableton will not export a click on its own. You have to create one. So let's turn this one off and show this click here, which is a hi-hat. But it still has to stick to the metronome so they can hear when the tempo fluctuations will happen for a music video. So they're really playing in the room. Pull back. And then let it go. It's like a rubber band. And then we're all in. We're 90 BPM from then on, and that makes it pretty easy. So about 2 or 3 takes of that. And I leave this click on the whole time, just so the brass can come in and know when the downbeat lead is in the timpani and all the discussion in the back.
Woke up 6 o'clock in the morning when I ain't even wanna go.
Of course, and then I rapped over it. So that's how you create your own composition with all of the techniques of using live players, plugins, and the players were recorded remotely, as well as they recorded at the video scene, putting jazz improvisation or any instrument you may play into the mix of your music. Any live player helps. Any of your friends who play an instrument, it will add life and beauty to your music, I promise you. As well as using things like 808 with classical music. My influences are vast. I love Mahler, Rachmaninoff, Stravinsky, Shostakovich, Prokofiev, Wagner, Palestrina, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. These are like my favorite musicians. When I was growing up, I listened to a lot of their records. Later, I learned jazz. I learned to be in love with Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, you name it. And of course, I love hip hop. So there's so many different influences. The influence of Nas, influence of Tupac, Biggie, KRS-One. There's so many, Tribe Called Quest, so many influences in each genre that I really, really love. And so listening to a lot of different styles of music, I think, can prepare you to compose something from your soul that's original, that's positive, authentic, and uniquely you, while also hearing the influences of everyone else around you.